thank you so much for celebrating National Library Week with us. Our staff would like to share with you what brings us joy, those special moments where we have connected with one another, with our collections, and with the world to bring you and all of Ohio wonderful information.
The idea of learning and research and being in an environment where that was valued. I like the idea of the ivory tower and the big ideas and the big thoughts and being part of that. And I think that was the original attraction for me. But what I found after over 25 years in libraries is that what I really love is the people, the people and the chance to make a difference in their lives. I've built so many amazing relationships over the course of my time in library. I feel like I've watched libraries be a positive impact in their community. I've watched people get jobs. I've watched kids learn how to read. In my current position, I've been able to help libraries.
There's so many things in the library that bring me joy, but what really lights me up is when I see another person really have that moment where they have new understanding, whether that's on the face of a child or on a senior or in one of our students. I just love that moment where they're like, oh, and you can see just new worlds and new possibilities light up for someone.
I find a lot of joy in visiting local history collections here in the state of Ohio. You can find some of the strangest, most interesting things, like block cards of old house sales, or someone can find their house on a map, or maybe a yearbook or something like that. And while these are small things, they also tell the story of Ohio and of people and families that grew up here.
I decided to become a librarian because the library was a big part of my life growing up. My grandparents took me there all the time. My grandpa would offer to take me every Thursday if I wanted to play, to get books, and that is really special memories. My parents really encouraged us to go to the library anytime we wanted something to read, or if we were curious about something, or if we needed help with a project at school. We went to the library to figure it out.
When I was in high school, my first after-school job was working in the local public library, and I literally took that job because I needed to pay for my car payment. And it was over the course of a couple years there in high school that, under the guidance and support of that library director, Christy Eblin, I really came to discover that not only did I enjoy working in a library, but I was actually kind of good at it. And it was through her support and giving me tasks to do that were maybe above and beyond what a typical library clerk might get to do, that I was encouraged to pursue that education when I moved to Columbus for college, and that's what I did. And
I chose to be a librarian because of my mom, dad, and grandparents. All of them loved reading, loved books. My mother was a teacher and loved reading books to children as a kindergarten teacher. My dad worked in education, so it was really something where I grew up with a love of books, and that really, got me into be interested in being a librarian.
I always thought I was going to be a teacher. I really wanted to be a teacher growing up. And when I went through college and did my student teaching, I decided I didn't want to be a teacher, but I was already too far in and I needed to do something with my education degree. And librarianship seemed like a natural progression for that. And I really enjoy all the nitty-gritty technical aspects, especially with cataloging and actually finding the information.
I went to library school very late in life. It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to be. but librarianship was it. And so I went to library school. I learned how to not only recognize which materials are valuable and worth saving, but I also learned how to digitize those materials, put them online so that the people that weren't fortunate to have a grandmother sitting next to them could learn their stories. They could find them online and they could learn them, or they could learn any other stories that interested them.
One of the things that I get to do in my position as Associate State Librarian is work very closely with library directors around the state when they are in receipt of an LSTA grant. That's where we use federal funds to support programs, initiatives, really interesting ideas that libraries have that they want to implement in their local communities. And it's through that work that I find quite a bit of joy as I get to see those programs really take off. Sometimes it's because I'm on site, on campus, at the public library, and I get to see that program or that technology in use.
This is hard. I guess I have a lot of memories and a lot of great interactions with people throughout my library career. My background prior to working at the state library is in public libraries, and I worked a lot with children. So I have a lot of wonderful memories of just the excitement of kiddos coming into the library, wanting to find a book, or going straight to, a certain section that they like, or having fun in a program, and just watching their eyes light up is really memorable. But I also helped a lot of folks with technology, a lot of older people with their phones and with their Kindles and e-readers, and that was always sometimes challenging but also rewarding, because you have to be patient. Technology is frustrating, and it was really a rewarding experience to be able to have them walk out of the library with their problem resolved or the book on their Kindle, and I was able to help with that. In my role here, my patron is libraries, which is really cool. So my favorite memories are when I'm able to help facilitate or be a part of someone's growth as a library professional, as a library leader, just kind of witnessing those aha moments that people get when they're doing any of our programs, whether that's the aha of having a good idea or meeting a new library friend or realizing something about themselves that makes them, important to the work that they do, is really cool to see.
Somebody called and they were looking for an article. They couldn't get access to this article anywhere. They saw that we had it. Could I possibly get it for them? I said, I'll look into it. Sometimes we're not able to get everything right away, but hopefully I'd be able to get it for them pretty quickly. So we hung up. I looked it up. I found it right away. I sent it right to them, and they just sent back, "Thank you so much," in all capital letters. So even though to me it was a really simple question, and the entire, from answering the phone to getting the thank you email was 10 minutes, it just shows how something that I think is really simple is very impactful to someone else.
There's so many to consider when I think about, as I said, I've been doing this for over 25 years. For the first 25 years, I was in public libraries and working public service, and day in and day out helping people with all manner of work, whether it was job-related work, picking out books to read, doing homework assignments, applying to colleges, applying for jobs, all of those things. It's just so rewarding. I think that I've observed it over the course of my career. I think that working in libraries has made me a better helper. I don't think I was as good of a helper when I started in libraries as I am now, but it's really done that. And in my current role now as the LSTA coordinator and grants administrator here at the library, the state library, I'm not working directly with patrons and the public anymore. Libraries are my patrons now. Libraries are the people that I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help them write successful grants. I'm trying to help them serve their communities. I'm trying to help them get the money they need to have the impact that they want to have in their communities. And that brings me tremendous joy because I get to work with so many great libraries across the state, school libraries, public libraries, academic libraries, special libraries, and I get to see all of the great work that they're doing across Ohio. It really is amazing.
I think sometimes for me it's helpful to find the joy in the everyday moments of helping a patron. So whenever a patron comes in and they need to print something or they need to access the computer, I'm just happy that we're able to have that resource for them, that we're able to help them with that, and that they are able to, apply for that job, or they're able to, get that homework printed off or whatever they need to.
Well, I might be biased because I work with government documents, both federal and state publications, and I honestly had no idea that that was a specific type of collection until I started working at the state library. And I just kind of fell into it when I started, and I immediately loved it because it is so unique. It's such a niche collection. But there's so much information in these documents that you wouldn't even know existed unless you had a reason to use it and find information. It always boggles my mind, going especially to the older collections, say early 1900s, mid 1900s, how thorough some of these reports and publications are with all this data and statistics, and just everything that was collected and compiled by the federal government and the state government, how thorough they are.
So my favorite piece in the Rare Book Room is actually the oldest item that we have in the entire library collection, and that's a medieval manuscript from about the 13th century. And what I love about it is that you can look at it and you can imagine all of the people that worked on this. So you have a scribe, that's the person that does the writing. They may or may not be literate. Definitely probably a man, but may or may not be literate. There was somebody who created the parchment, stretched and scraped the animal's skin. There was the animal itself, and sometimes you can see little holes in the parchment. Is that hole in the parchment because the person who was making the parchment damaged it in some way, or is it because that animal that day was out in a blackberry patch eating blackberries and got pricked with a thorn, and it created a little wound that grew and grew as the parchment grew? They are the people that do the binding. There are all of these people that had to touch this item so that we could hold it today. And these are people that lived 700 years ago. They're still with us. The scribe, again, may or may not be literate. He's still here with us in his writing. That animal is still here. I find it miraculous that I can touch and hold this piece, this object, and think of not only the people that created it. I had no idea that 700 years later, people were going to look at it and treasure it.
Well, I have to say the Floyd Dickman collection brings me a lot of joy. I happen to walk by it every day when I come in the library, and I think coming from being, working in the children's department, being able to see, the bright colors and colorful covers of books in the Floyd Dickman collection brings me a lot of joy. And my colleague does a really great job changing out those displays. And so it's always kind of new and interesting, and I get to, see books that I didn't know about and pick them off the shelf and take them home. So that brings me a lot of joy. But then I also think the World War II propaganda posters are really cool and just interesting to look at. And the fact that we have those physical things that are from that era is really neat.
This is one of my favorite items from our collection here at the State Library of Ohio, and it is a Journal of Congress from the first through third Congresses starting in 1789. And this book is very special because it belonged to a member of the first Congress. It belonged to a gentleman named Nathaniel Niles, and it was his Journal of Congress, but he did a lot of writing in it. There's a lot of handwritten pages in the book that he wrote notes on and different information. He was a poet. He wrote a famous poem called The Battle of Bunker Hill, but then also served in the first Congress for the United States. And it is so special that we here at the State Library have this book in our collection and this unique piece of history.
Even though I don't work with it as much, I really just love all of our government documents. They are so unique. They're things that were put out by the federal government decades, sometimes even centuries ago. They are things that might not be digitized and that are only accessible in physical library buildings, of which one of ours is a few.
My favorite item in the State Library collection is some of our NASA stuff. We've got some old documents related to NASA and some things about Area 51 that are really interesting.
As the talking book supervisor, I would say the item in the collection that I find the most joy from is it's going to be just the talking book machine. So they're not actually ours. They are owned by the Library of Congress, but that's what I deal with on a regular basis, and then that is what is used to give people access to the audiobooks that the National Library Service has, and it gives. That's the connection, and that is the physical item that allows people to listen to those books.
Some of my favorite collections here at the State Library include those that tell our Ohio story. We have so many rare and precious items that are irreplaceable, that tell the story of our state, of how we survived through decades, through tumultuous times, through times of peace, through times of war, and how our Ohio story grew and evolved over time. Some things that come to mind are our poster collection. They're so fun. You can really see throughout time how people changed and the ways that people approached travel, approached the world. It just brings me endless delight. In particular, our collection of posters from the Department of Highways, which is no longer a department, and now it's part of the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT. But it used to be a separate department, and they have a wonderful poster series that were hand-drawn in the 1940s and 50s.